George Benson, Never Give Up on a Good Thing on BBC Radio London. It is 3:14. Shay here with you till 6 p.m. Wow, it's already that time of the show. It's time now to discuss all things technology and social media related. Now, this is actually a regular feature that we do on the show. It's called Ready Tech Go. And I'm joined in the studio now with our resident expert, technology and social media expert, James Erskine. You can get more details for him, okay? So it's on LinkedIn, on X, on Blue Sky. And it's his name, James Erskine, Erskine. James, such a pleasure to have you back on Radio London.
It's really nice to be back. And social media is never out the news at the moment, is it?
I mean, we spoke to you on the show last week when we had this massive news, didn't we? Which I'll talk about in a moment, just around kind of the online apps, the social media and how parents are tackling with that. But firstly, how are you finding London weather? Well,
it's tough, isn't it? Because London is glorious. You know, I'm a firm believer that it's the greatest city in the world.
It is.
Is it built for this heat? That's a slightly different question. I am feeling all right. I've had to wear trousers because I've been somewhere. I'm not in shorts. And I have been cowering in an air-conditioned room for some of today.
Okay.
But broadly, I'm coping and I like it. And you're right. If this was happening for 2 weeks, it might be a bit much. But seeing as it's a few days, I'm kind of okay
with it. Yeah, it's the other reason why I did not stand up and give you a hug, because I've just been sweaty Betty all morning. So I know that feeling. In fact, I was telling producer Rob earlier on that one of my really good friends, she works in London, okay? But whenever she has meetings, so similarly to what you've just described, right? You've had to be at a meeting. She'll just walk everywhere. And I think that's wonderful. She's constantly, counting her steps, and I'll get a screenshot of, Shay, look how many steps I've done today. And, I'm very supportive of that. However, about 2 hours ago, I got a WhatsApp message from her saying, Shay, I'm in Notting Hill.
Yeah.
Today is not the day to walk.
Completely.
And I said, so what are you going to do? And she said, well, I'm not tubing it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of Londoners, it's either, right, do you get on the bike and cycle? Or maybe you get one of those glorious black cabs and be on your way.
Yeah.
If you'd have gone to a meeting in shorts today, do you think you would have been judged?
It's a tough one, isn't it? You never know until you find out. And actually, somebody once taught me that you should ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
True.
So maybe if I'd have tried it, but it didn't feel right. Maybe when I have this meeting next and it's a heat wave, then maybe I'll wear shorts.
Perhaps you may. I'll be catching up a little bit later on, actually, with our fantastic weather presenter, Kate Kinsella. So we'll get more of an update of what that means for us, all Londoners, during half term. Shall we delve into your array of stories then?
Let's
My goodness me, where do you want to start?
Why don't we start? I was kind of, because we've chatted serious stuff and we've chatted, news last week. Why don't we have a look at something a bit more frivolous and a bit more silly?
Wonderful.
And I kind of look back to this date. And on this date, 26 years ago, so in the year 2000, a gentleman called Arthur C. Clarke was knighted. Now, he was quite unwell, so he was knighted where he lives. The ceremony went to him in Colombo, Sri Lanka.
Wow.
Now, you might be wondering who Arthur C. Clarke is. Well, he's the guy that wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh my gosh.
So he got knighted for his work for fiction. But why am I talking about this when we're talking about technology and social media?
Yeah.
Well, it's this reason. And in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and in quite a lot of his fiction writing, he predicted the internet. He predicted what satellites would look like. He proposed the idea of geostationary communication satellites.
Blimey.
The orbit that makes global broadcasting possible is now officially named after him. And in 1964, a BBC interview, he predicted the internet almost exactly. A world where satellites would allow people to connect, access information, and conduct businesses from anywhere. And in 1974, he predicted the personal computer. So the point I wanted to make was 26 years ago, we knighted somebody for his services to fiction, but actually he was a scientist too. And sometimes we should look for the people that are creating the make-believe to find out where we can see what the future might really look like.
Totally.
Isn't that a fascinating
I
thought?
think it's absolutely wonderful because, there will be many who do not know the name of Sir Arthur C. Clarke. However, he is the man who essentially was tapped into how the world would be now.
Yeah.
I also do think of this cartoon, The Jetsons.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember watching The Jetsons when I was a young girl, always thinking, wow, we're going to be in cars that kind of like float in the air, you know. It's funny how historically predictions have been made, but certain things have come to pass.
Well, I've worked in kind of media for a long time,
Yeah.
media and social media. And I remember being presented to probably around 30 years ago, talking about things like how one day we won't listen to the radio, we'll have our own personalised radio, and we'll choose what we listen to, and we'll choose the songs, and
Wow.
we'll choose the order. And kind of that's what podcasts have become,
It is,
isn't it?
totally.
And it's funny what sticks and what doesn't. It's funny how technology does move on, and some things are predicted by fantasies, some are predicted by what happens in make-believe, and some things, I mean, look, you've referenced the Jetsons. I used to love Tomorrow's World. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was bang on the nose,
Yeah.
sometimes it was wildly inaccurate, and you never knew which ones would come true and which ones wouldn't.
I was looking at this article that you did highlight with regards to Sir Arthur C. Clarke. And it says here as well, at the heart of 2001 sat HAL 9000, which was this calm, articulate AI that could hold a conversation. So do you think in actuality, everything that Clarke has predicted is coming to fruition?
Exactly.
We're in the age of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny to find out where else we can look to for inspiration in fiction and things that aren't real to see whether they'll become real. It's interesting to say, oh, I bet they'll invent that. So, look, Shay, you've referenced the Jetsons flying cars. Maybe you will be
Maybe.
one. Maybe the Jetsons.
Oh.
There's also, it's worth noting, seeing as we are in a world where we can talk about social media. So, in terms of memes, there's some are true and some are fabricated.
Okay.
But The Simpsons is often cited as predicting lots of things
It
that
is.
happen in the future. And it's worth, for people that don't know, going down a rabbit hole. If they want to go on a rabbit hole, having a look at what The Simpsons has predicted and what it hasn't is fascinating.
See, The Simpsons is like a cultural phenomenon. My other half, Sonny, who you know well, is the biggest fan of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And if you kind of trail back and watch it from when it first began 2 decades ago, blimey, there's so much that they get right and it's so accurate.
It's incredible, yeah.
You just think, how is that possible?
Yeah, indeed.
And it is animation. It
Yes.
is a cartoon.
Yes.
Right, let's move to your next story. Which one did you want to go with next?
Why don't we look at the clip economy? Because I think this one is really interesting. This was a piece that was in Atlantic magazine, quite a lofty American publication, and this was on their podcast, which was brilliant. And they were making a point which is a little bit meta, not as in the company, but as in rising above the kind of discourse and the discussion. Because, Shay, there will be some people that
Yeah.
potentially see this clip of me talking to you.
Okay.
And we will have reached those people. But will those people have listened to the entire conversation that you and I have? Will those people get the full reflection, the full distillation, the full understanding of every single part of our conversation? Well, this article, this piece on this Atlantic podcast was saying that we live in a world of the clip economy. What's happening now increasingly is once people would think that a clip of an interview was to profile the full interview.
Yeah.
That isn't the case anymore.
Okay.
Now people are absorbing so much information from just the clips that actually the clips are becoming the main thing, and the full long form article actually isn't the thing that people are engaging
People are
with.
not interested. It's kind of interesting that you say, you know, that they're more interested in just the various clips. But in actuality, how can you have the wider context if you don't see the interview or understand the interview in its full entirety?
Well, that's a really good point. I used to have a phrase from the marketing world where people talk about content being king, but I used to say context was King Kong.
Yes.
So without the context of the quotes, how do you know in which place it was absorbed in what it was said? But lots of podcast interviews now, some people don't ever listen to the full interview. Some people don't listen to the audio. You're now in video by default. And the reason why lots of podcasts moved into the video space was for discoverability. Now, actually, they're in the video space just to reach more people. Some people only engage with the podcast interview just on the video content. And that's becoming true. And what you're also seeing in terms of media consumption is we all think that people have shorter attention spans. Well, actually, that doesn't necessarily bear out, because we're finding that younger people are actually gravitating to either the shorter clips or the longer form interviews. So podcast listening of an hour and a half, even Joe Rogan, biggest podcast in the world, no matter what you think of his politics, his episodes are like 2.5 hours long sometimes.
He goes, doesn't he? He just talks for ages.
He completely does. And so you're almost seeing the middle bit cut out, but people are going either short form or long form and not anywhere in between. So yeah, it's an interesting comment.
But it's also, I guess, indicative of the times that we're in.
Yeah.
Due to the rise of social media, you know, whether you're looking at, I know everyone always comments on TikTok or Instagram. We do tend to overlook Snapchat.
Yes.
And yet in reality, Snapchat is where, you know, under 21-year-olds are constantly, building relationships, conversations, and their own personal content. And that's all short form.
It's a really good point. And it's beyond just there's a bigger point here is, do you remember when we never used to call it social media? We used to call it social networking.
Yes.
And I think there's a reason for that. And it's an often understated reason. And social networking was about building communities and networking with people.
Right.
Social media, I think, is indicative of this. People are sitting back more. Less people are contributing. More people are just consuming the media. So it's less of a networking device and more of a media tool. And your point about Snapchat is a really good one. Because certainly in my experience, it's not just a social network, it's in everything. They make their calls on Snapchat.
Exactly.
They consume everything. They follow the brands. They follow their friends.
Yep.
There's no reason to ever come out of Snapchat,
It's
seemingly.
a world of its own.
Exactly.
And I can only say this in recent weeks of obviously spending time with my nieces and nephews who are in that age demographic, that I've really got an understanding of how all-consuming Snapchat is and yet how overlooked it is.
Yeah.
There's always discussion on TikTok and on Instagram, but not Snapchat.
Well, I also think, and remember I used to run a youth marketing agency.
Yes.
I think that Snapchat is not spoken about by older generations simply because they can't work it.
Yeah, just don't figure
I'm nominally, I'm meant to understand social media. I still can't work Snapchat. I don't know what the buttons do.
My niece looked at me last week when I was like, "Oh, so are you messaging your friend?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm just messaging her on Snapchat." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm on." And I said, "I'm on Snapchat." And she looked at me like, "Okay."
Yeah.
She brought me right back down to reality. Like, yeah, I don't know why you're on there, because I'm definitely not going to be messaging you.
Indeed.
Right, we'll continue having a chat because there's quite an array more of stories to come, and we'll go as well delving into the school run in the next part of the show.